the main characteristics that all character in the corpus of the teachings of our deen could be traced back to. And these four, there are actually four characteristics. So in each of these midnight talks that the three of us are together, Ustad Zaid and I and Sheikh Yasir, inshallah we'll be speaking about the ins and outs of one of them. These four were mentioned by Imam al-Ghazali. There's different viewpoints on what the Ummahat al-Akhlaq are, but I'll share with you the ones that Imam Ghazali lists. He lists al-hikmatu wal-shaja'ah wal-iffatu wal-adl. And the idea behind there being Ummahat al-Akhlaq is that everything else relating to character could be linked back to one of these four. And I'll say them in English just so everyone's on the same page as us. Hikmah, wisdom. And that's inshallah the one that we're going to be talking about tonight. And shaja'ah, courage. And iffa, chastity. But obviously it means more than just your dealings with the opposite gender. So a full sense of iffa and chastity. And the last of them, the fourth one, is adl. And that's justice. And speaking about this, being it's the last 10, and being that we discussed many times before that we're seeking a fruit in our amal, a fruit in our ibadah, and that fruit is character. Speaking about these four gives us a bird's eye view of what it means to be a morally upright believer. These, you need to envision them in terms of my individual life and in terms of public life and society. These are the glue that keep everything together. If these things, these four, wisdom, courage, chastity, and justice are not in place, then society will definitely decline. And the individual will lose any sense of virtue. And the first of them being hikmah, what is wisdom, is an entire discussion. And inshallah we're going to be going through this, but I'll start sharing a few thoughts about it. Wisdom, what does it mean? When it comes to defining wisdom, it's important to note that there's ilm and then there is hikmah. Ilm is knowledge. That knowledge is an inward and outward function. There's ilm al-batin and ilm al-zahir. There's that ilm, that information and that guidance that leads you to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is essentially becoming a person of khashya. That is all in the realm of seeking knowledge and information. But then now, how do you put that knowledge to work? That's where hikmah comes into play. It is tawdif al-ilm. It is to have something more than just knowledge. Is to have a level of understanding. And this level of understanding is such a coveted thing that our Prophet ﷺ said, "Man yuridillahu bihi khayran yufaqihu fid din." Whoever Allah wants goodness for, He'll give him an understanding of the deen. Right? More than knowledge, understanding. And other definitions of hikmah, they say the following. They say hikmah is فعل ما ينبغي على الوجه الذي ينبغي في الوقت الذي ينبغي. There's three considerations for wisdom. One of them, it is to do what ought to be done. The way it should be done, at the time it should be done. So hikmah and wisdom requires a level of intelligence that involves understanding people, understanding situations and timing and so on and so forth. So this is one definition of hikmah. The other definition they give for hikmah is عبارة عن إحكام وضع الشيء في موضعه. It is for the individual to perfect the sense of knowing how to put things in their proper scale, right? So hikmah is putting things in their proper scale and the way that they should be dealt with. And they say that dhulm, on the other hand, oppression, is essentially اختلال الموازين. Because the definition of dhulm in our tradition is very different than just dealing with another. Right? Dhulm involves me oppressing myself. So what is dhulm? اختلال الموازين. It is for there to be an imbalance in the scale. right? Allah Azza wa Jal imposed the balance in everything in creation. And when that balance is lost, life becomes derailed. And that balance is in nature, where Allah Azza wa Jal says, ظَهَرَ الْفَسَادُ فِي الْبَرِّ وَالْبَحْرِ بِمَا كَسَبَتْ أَيْدِي النَّاسِ لِيُذِيقَهُمْ بَعْضَ الَّذِي عَمِلُوا لَعَلَّهُمْ يَرْجِعُونَ. That corruption has become apparent in land and sea because of what people have done. So that they may taste some of what they have done, so they may come back, right? So, and of course, that's more than just like things like doing things that are detrimental to the environment. بِمَا كَسَبَتْ أَيْدِي النَّاسِ leads to the corruption of social life as well, the proliferation of indecency, and so on and so forth. It leads to, so there's, hikmah in this sense is for me to keep the scales in the balance. وَالسَّمَاءَ رَفَعَهَا وَوَضَعَ الْمِيزَانَ, Allah, as Allah Azza wa Jal says. Allah is the one who raised the heavens above, and then He subhanah imposed the balance. So there's a lot to say about hikmah. That's sort of like an initial framing of it. And I pray that Allah Azza wa Jal allows this hour to be spent in dhikr and ilm nafi'. Allahumma ameen.
Bismillah walhamdulillah. Wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ba'd. So inshallah, may Allah bless you, Shaykh Osama, for this framing. I think the space of trying to explore ummahatul akhlaq, the principal character traits that we want to embody and empower ourselves with, should be a part of one of the serious life projects we take on. Refining oneself, refining one's character, refining one's conduct. This type of refinement has always been praised in human history, right? Where people really valued the refinement of character. They would say, for example, people would sit down for marriage, and you would have the elders observing the refinement of one's character. How do they speak? When do they speak? For example, famously, father and son went to get married, and this was a father and son, both of them. They went to pick a girl for the son, okay? And this was back in the day, as they say. So they were observing kind of the conduct and the character of the sisters, and the son is going to kind of observe which one he's kind of inclined towards. So one sister was very talkative and wouldn't stop talking. And the other sister, sat kind of calmly and was very choice in her words and spoke at a certain point. So the father said to the son later on, take the one who spoke less. Because هي دلالة على رجاحة العقل. It's an indication of a certain type of strength in the mind, discipline, thoughtfulness. ثرثرة الكلام, people, men or women who talk a lot, دلالة على خفة العقل. People who just don't stop running their mouth, it's an indication of a simplicity or a weakness in the mind. So the idea of refined character has always been a value very much cherished. Today, in the age that we live in such a superficial age that no one even looks for those things anymore. Everyone's looking for the trappings of excellence, as anthropologists call them. Show me how nice your car is, how big your home is, how nice your belongings are, then I am attracted, and then I'm interested, right? And people will actually turn a blind eye to really bad character. People will say to me all the time, I was like, you didn't notice this about this person before? Yeah, but what? You were blinded by, beauty, or blinded by power, or blinded by money. Right now, those things have lost their flavor. Why? Because the bad character has come about. Now you're starting to see, and I'll ask this of women all the time, or of men all the time. You didn't see this before? No, I noticed it, but I thought maybe perhaps they'll grow out of it. So as a society, especially as a community of believers, we have to become far more prone to tahdhibun nafs, to the refinement of the self. And these character traits and these akhlaq that Shaykh Osama is highlighting, these are the ones that we have to lead with. And this one of wisdom is the most cherished akhlaq of the past, a remarkably cherished khuluq. You know, we say in the Quran, قُلْ رَبِّ زِدْنِي عِلْمًا. Oh Allah, increase me in knowledge. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also says, وَمَنْ يُؤْتَ الْحِكْمَةِ فَقَدْ أُوتِيَ خَيْرًا كَثِيرًا. The one who has been given wisdom has been given an abundance of good. Why? You will meet someone who's brilliant, intellectually beyond the pale, and they can mouth off facts and data and whatever. They possess little wisdom, you can't tolerate them. They don't know when to shut up. They don't know when to stop. They say things in all the wrong times. What up? No one cares about how much you know. Who cares? Just stop talking. But no wisdom. You know, they possess so much knowledge, but they have fickle egos. They're insecure all the time, so it rubs everyone off the wrong way. No wisdom. No. Check your akhlaq, check yourself. You have all this people think, okay, because I have the money, it's like I have the proverbial trump card, I can get away with anything. But if you don't have wisdom, if you're not sensible, if you're not reasonable, if you're a blowhard, whatever it is, people just can't tolerate that stuff. Wisdom is, that's why Allah says, مَنْ يُؤْتَ الْحِكْمَةَ فَقَدْ أُوتِيَ خَيْرًا كَثِيرًا. If you have wisdom, you have been given so much good. Right? I've mentioned marriages a few times today. I'll continue on that theme because it's always the big interest of most of our midnight gatherings, like marriage. Whether I like to joke whether it's, you know, getting into a marriage or getting out of one. That's usually where people's tension lies. How do I get into a marriage, Sheikh? And then the other side is like, how can I get out of it? Like, so we're on that spectrum. But regardless, one of the fatal diseases of marriages today, a disastrous lack of wisdom. Have no idea how to communicate with the spouse. The wisdom of speaking to a woman, the wisdom of capturing a woman's heart, the wisdom of how to actually enrapture her soul and really make her feel safe and secure and loved and tended to. It's wisdom. Few men possess it. On the other side, few women possess the wisdom of how to communicate with men, how to treat a man, how to deal with a man, how to actually love a man, كيف تستعبدي قلبه. How can you make his heart enslaved to you? It requires wisdom. Most people today think it's what? It's as the Egyptians say, بالدراع. I'm going to twist your arm until you love me, right? I'm going to forcibly you're going to forcibly love me. No, you're going to love me. And then that's happening under duress, but I can't stand your face, right? And that's how most people operate. It's like it's an idea of if I'm just forceful enough, if I'm fierce enough, if I'm loud enough, if I'm intimidating enough, if I'm threatening enough, right? That's why most people today, they walk on the proverbial eggshells. I'm just scared of the consequences. Step the wrong way, you're going to be eliminated, right? Fear and threatening is the worst type of relationship you can possess. A beautiful relationship is when the man and the woman actually understand the nature of men and women. And this is where many people, this is wisdom, but this is the wisdom of ages. الحكمة ضالة المؤمن أن وجدها فهو أحق بها. Wisdom is the lost property of the believer. Wherever you find it, take it. I said this a few nights ago somewhere. I was in Canada, I was giving a talk. I was saying, Sheikhna, in our community, we have repositories of wisdom. Repositories are like big strongholds and like vessels of wisdom. You know where they're found? In our elders. Our mothers, our fathers, our grandparents, those who've lived 60, 70, 80, 90 years, they have a lot of wisdom. I want to ask you sincerely, how many of us in this room ever think of going to those elders and asking them for any type of advice? Slim to none. Slim to none. Throughout human history, it was the wisdom of the elders, the guidance of the elders. What do you think? What makes a good life? If you were to go back and remap your life, what would you have done differently? No one does that. Blinders on, going 100 miles per hour, I have no idea where. That's what they call the proverbial rat race. And it's a very appropriate term that has been used to describe us today. Rats running around. Have no idea where we're going. You see the rats in like New York City subways. They're Like we literally, like if you just pause and you watch the rats and you look at how we operate as humans, we mimic each other profoundly. Like the directionality, none. I'm just rushing to go where exactly? You know, Sheikh, the hustle, Sheikh, the hustle. Where are you hustling to? But I'm hustling strong. I don't know, but I'm hustling there. Like I was watching this, I was one of these like influencer characters from Egypt, but he was like an influencer in the Egyptian version. He was like, the reason I'm going to get that much more ahead of the others is because, see, people who are trying to accomplish the same goals as me, for example, their uncle dies. They'll take an entire day off to go take the train to Alexandria, come back, so they attend their janazah. Me, what kind of waste of time? I'm hustling. I don't have time for that. I'll send a note. I'll send a text message, condolences, whatever. That's why I'm always going to be that much more ahead. Ahead of whom, ya baghl? Who are you going to be ahead of? Who? Like, where are you? Like, ahead of whom in which race? Ahead of whom in which race exactly? Which race is it? We're racing, we're all racing, but we're racing to our demise. Like, where are you actually racing towards? And so this is no wisdom. People love the idea of the hustle culture, but it possesses zero wisdom. There's no directionality. So the intensity with which, and I'm telling you, the dysfunctionality of relationships, not knowing the wisdom of managing your parents, the wisdom of raising your children, this requires that you inherit this knowledge. There was a young couple once that I was counseling, and they were like, "Excuse me, Sheikh, this is not like the olden days. We're very knowledgeable these days. We have a lot of experience, okay? We've watched plenty of movies and shows, so we don't really need this type of guidance you're giving." I was like, "Oh, really? Oh, mashallah. That wise, that competent, that capable. You, in your early 20s, don't need advice and guidance on successful marriage?" I told them, "Wallahi, if a successful marriage smacked you in the face, you wouldn't know what it looked like. You have no idea what successful marriage looks like." This type of arrogance that is grounded in no wisdom, that I can do it alone, I don't need you. Thanks, but no thanks. A lot of parents have given up on giving their children advice. You know why? Because it's just falling on dead ears. Because there's this arrogance of like, thank you, I know. I got it. You don't know anything. What do you know? You know very little. Wisdom is a function of experience. Knowledge is one thing. Experiential knowledge is a whole other thing. It's the difference between the ilm and khabir, like alim and khabir. It's one thing to know things. It's a whole other thing to have expertise in something. Like, for example, these guys who go climb Mount Everest, right? Usually of a certain ilk of people who do this. Right? I'm not going to say, you know what I'm talking about. It's like, why are you going all the way up there? It's like death-defying, and people are frozen in mountains for no reason, just for like pure, that's once again, no wisdom, no guidance in life, just, I guess, I have nothing else to do, let me go freeze on the side of a mountain. Why are you doing that? You don't need to do that. That's not a good thing to do. It's not like, stay home. Or like, stay at this elevation. But these people, by the way, they've studied Mount Everest, the gear, right? They have everything, what you need, how to fix your oxygen thing. What is it called? Like how to become acclimated or whatever to each level, so that you're. But you think any of them, with their proverbial knowledge, can do a thing? What do they need? They need one of these Nepalese Sherpas. These Nepalese Sherpas, they have, you know what they have? They have hikmah. They have applied, experiential, real knowledge. It's not just theoretical stuff, right? So hikmah is a function of وضع الشيء في محله. Like it's something, placing things where they belong. Your technical, theoretical knowledge says that, but realistically, as lived experience, centuries of experience, this is what's required. Today, everyone has a conception of what a good life looks like. And everyone sitting here has a piercing idea of what they believe if they possess, they'll have a good life. I'll have a happy life. And it's usually a function of a certain type of relationship, i.e. a spouse, and a job and money and things like that. That's going to mean good life. So if I just have job, money, status, companion, equals good life. That's what most people's logic is. Is that wise? Is that wisdom? No, that's not wise at all. That's not lived experience. Go talk to people who've lived a life and they can tell you what it means to live life with wisdom in a wise manner. What are the regrets that people have about the decisions they made in their life? You need to empower yourself with that wisdom. Go to people who've lived life and say, what are your regrets in life? What should I be mindful of? Don't live life with blinders on. Because, and by the way, the average person today is not living life, they don't even have ilm. They have no ilm, no wisdom. It's just blinders on, moving 1,000 miles per hour. So wisdom is everything. It's ra'sul mal. It's really the wealth that a person has is the extent that they have wisdom. I know how to actually make the right decisions. I know how to make thoughtful decisions. I know how to calculate things correctly. Why? How do you actually get to that point? It's because you've had real experience, rich mentorship. Rich mentorship. Empower the elderly of our community. They're all sitting there and they're, wallahi al-azim, the Prophet ﷺ says, لَيْسَ مِنَّا مَنْ لَمْ يُوَقِّرْ كَبِيرَنَا. You're not from us if you don't honor our elders. You know what honoring the elder means? It doesn't just mean like being polite. Tawqir means what? Is like, I genuinely value and honor you. I heed your guidance. I listen to you. I spend quality time. Today, spending time with elderly, the way if it's like been, the way it's been pictured in the public sphere is like the way you go visit people in nursing homes. It's like you are this very kind, generous. Let me go spend some 2 minutes with this orphaned elder. And like I'm okay. Oh, really? Okay, here's some. Let me play cards with you. Okay, and that's it. And that's it. That's all elders have to offer. That's all we can. That's why, as a civilization, we're dismally failing, right? We're not even. And by the way, we don't even seek counsel from other human beings, let alone the elders anymore. The self-centeredness, the self-absorption is so entrenched. We don't want to hear it from anyone. And wallahi, I cannot tell you how many times I try to even give a type of nasiha in people who are going through different challenges in their life. And if it rubs them just slightly the wrong way, instantaneously they'll cancel you. I have no interest in what you have to say. Why? Because I didn't dance to your tune? Who cares if I tell you what you like? That's not going to help you. If I sit here and I sing the song that you want to hear all the time, how is that going to help you? I'm just reifying your ego and your nafs. No, you and I have to learn to stop talking and listen very carefully to the wisdom that is out there. My elders, my teachers, even my peers who can be a sounding board for me to listen. You have to empower critical, judgmental people in your life. And that sounds very harsh because everyone's running away from judgment. Oh, he's so judgmental, she's so judgmental. No, what's toxic is judgmentalism. Right? The disease of judgment. But as a virtue, you need to be judged. You have to be judged every single day. Sayyidina Umar would say, حَاسِبُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ قَبْلَ أَن تُحَاسَبُوا. Hold yourself accountable before you're held accountable. If you and I, we disempower every single person around us, and everyone's terrified to even remotely give us advice. Every parent I know, except illa al-qalil, is terrified to give their children advice. They call me to do it. They call Sheikh Usama to do it. Sheikh, I'm like, okay, you're putting me in like an impossible situation. Okay, Assalamu alaikum, random person X. How are you doing? Let's go. Good, you're doing good. Okay, well, and I'm trying to like figure out how am I going to build rapport to pass on a wisdom. Like you see like this weird conduit because of like the maniacal arrogance that a lot of us have as young people. You should be the one who empowers your parent or your elder, your uncle, your aunt, your grandparent to give you insights and wisdom. Is everything they have to say perfectly true? No. But listen to the integrity of it. Maybe you'll find not just a little, you'll certainly find a lot in it. And then with, I like to call this, in my paradigm, I like to call it the matrix of mentorship. Every single one of us here have to empower in our lives a matrix of mentorship. And this matrix should look like elderly, I mean people who have gray in their beard and who've lived a life. Teachers, mashayikh, right? Mentors, older brothers, older sisters in the community, in your family that you empower. And then a peer group that's not going to be your yes men or your yes women, but people who are going to actually check you. People who you're going to live with and be like, hey, what are you doing? why are you running a fool? Why are you acting like a fool? Calm down. You're acting crazy right now, right? You're making no sense, right? That's what we like to, when we identify someone who has no wisdom, we're like, you're making no sense right now, right? You are completely talking like a fool. So the fact that wisdom, so when you are empowered now with this wisdom, what happens? You are immediately elevated in your integrity. You become respected in your family, respected in your home, because you know when to speak and when not to speak. You know what to share and what not to share. You know how to actually manage, and not just manage, but have a successful, beautiful relationship. You know when to back down. A lot of wisdom requires you know to back down. Khalas. Someone's acting a fool. Someone's raging. The biggest mistake we make is we go like, rams, and we keep on bumping. No, back it down. Khalas. But you don't understand what they said to me. Who cares what they said? Just back down. This is not the time to ram. The ramming is going to do is something's going to break. So just back down. There's wisdom in that. And then the person in front of you feels like, alhamdulillah, you just gave me the space to act like an idiot right now, because I am in idiot mode. So just give me some space. Sometimes I'm not going to say the right thing. That's wisdom, by the way, to know how to manage that. And then to come back around on the other side, hey, listen, you know how much I love you, but what were you saying? How could you say that? Why would you do that? Why would you speak to me that way? Whatever it is. Wisdom. This is all wisdom. But we are lacking it because we have no access to it. You can't just will wisdom into your life. Wisdom is a function of experience. And it's a function of mentorship and guidance and back and forth and questions. Your default setting as young people has to be that I have very little answer. All of us, but not just young, all of us. We have little knowledge and we have everything to learn. We have little experience and we have all experiences to be had. And that's when you become, subhanAllah, you read the biographies of many of our ulama. They'll say, just right now, we were sitting and we were reading Ayyuha al-Walad. What did Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad. Shibli, Imam al-Shibli, what did he say? Jalastu arba'utu mi'ah. I sat with 400 scholars. And you'll have many ulama are like that. Sayyidina Imam Malik, the Imam of Darul Hijrah, he sat with how many? Hundreds of teachers that he had. So he says upwards of 700 teachers that he sat with. 700 teachers before he felt appropriate to speak about matters of the deen. Today, you don't have to sit with one teacher. You can sit alone, listen to some lectures, and then you start your TikTok. 10 easy ways to guarantee Jannah. Let me show you. And then you start doing some dance, and people are like, oh my God. And this is zero wisdom. Zero wisdom in it. Zero guidance. It's all theatrics. And most people's religious consumption is that. Theatrical characters on the internet. Who are just who figured out how to manipulate the algorithm to get you to watch. And you think you're consuming knowledge. Like you come talk to someone about a certain theme or topic. So no, alhamdulillah, I listened to a lecture on that. They shut you down immediately. Okay, khalas, I'll stop talking. So parents stop talking, shuyukh stop talking to you, elders stop talking to you. What are you left with? And I'll pass the mic back to Shaykh Husam with this. I probably went too long, samihni Mawlana. But the last thing I'll say is if you go to people who've now reached certain levels of power, like CEOs, and they're sitting at the helm of their empire, their corporation, whatever. You know the biggest investment they make in? What's the biggest investment that they will pay top dollar for? Huh? Mentors. They'll pay for mentors. They'll hire the best talent, the best advisors. They're looking for the best minds so that they can occupy their lives with. I want the best possible insights around me all the time. And they'll travel and they'll go to some yogi or some Sherp, whatever, some yogi or some, guru who can twist their tongue and say what is the mind, that the mind is not IND. And they're like, oh, wow, okay, that blew my mind. I spent $20,000 and he told me, free your mind. And I was like, wow, let me sit on that. I have no idea what he said, but it was wise. But they will spend a lot of money on that wisdom. By the way, you don't have to spend that much money on that wisdom. Although that's the number one, you talk to any billionaire, they'll say the biggest thing you should spend your money on is what? Knowledge. Learn more. So how is it that I'm going to try to have a successful marriage, I've learned nothing. Brothers and sisters, I'm going to say something slightly controversial, so bear with me, okay? Some of you might not like me after this, but Shaykh Husam, it's okay. Some people say, you know what I took? I was before my marriage, I did some premarital counseling, and there was a questionnaire. I answered 100 questions. And so I was ready for marriage. No, you're not. It doesn't suffice. 100 questionnaire does not suffice. Some premarital counseling does not suffice. It's good. It's one part of the pie. You need to empower yourself with the wisdom of your average ammu, khaltu, auntie, uncle in the community, and go and sit with them. Find a marriage that is above you by years, that's successful, in saying, I'm considering marriage. What do you advise me so I can have a successful marriage? Therapists are not enough, with all due respect to therapists. Premarital counseling is not enough. It's one part of it, with all due respect. I know people don't like to hear this stuff because somehow it triggers people. It's like, no, it's fine. It's one piece of it. Because often therapists they have one element of how a successful marriage happens. You need to actually go, and sisters in the back, empower the khaltus and the aunties to give you real advice about how to have a successful marriage. And brothers in the front, go to the ammus and the uncles and ask them, how should I ensure that I have a successful marriage? Then you're putting yourself ahead of the curve. Otherwise, you're going in blind. All of this is the pathway to wisdom. The ulama say, nisful ilm as-su'al. Half of knowledge is the question. It's the art of the question, how to ask questions, the volume of questions. You should be a person who questions. They say, nisful ilm as-su'al. And you know what the nisful thani is? Like the half of knowledge is the question. You know what the second half of knowledge is? Knowing where to get it. Right? I have one of my shuyukh back in the day when right out of high school, and I studied in Jordan. His name is Sheikh Usama Nimr, may Allah bless him, one of the beautiful scholars of hadith in Jordan right now. He said to me, when I first went, he's like, I want you to go to this, the masjid that actually Sheikh Qatnani was the imam of back in the day in Jordan. Go to the library, and I want you to write down, get a notebook and write down every book, every title, every name. The library was huge. I was like, this is going to take me forever. He's like, whatever it takes. Every day I had to sit there. I'd go to this library for like 2-3 hours and write down every title. Okay, fiqh, take me like weeks. Just to write down the titles and the names. And then at the end, I had this like two notebooks full of like names of books and authors. He said, do you know why I told you to do this? It's because he said half of knowledge is you know where to go to find it. So now you have a familiarity with some of the names and titles. Now you know these books exist. Before that, you had no idea. So now you know, because Mawla, isn't this true, Mawla? Even right now, if we're trying to research, what's the first thing we're doing? Which sources should I go to? Who should I go to ask, right? Isn't that the biggest concern? Wisdom is knowing that I have to ask questions. And the second half of knowledge is knowing where to ask it. So just present to yourself this scenario. Okay, I want to do any venture in life. Life itself. What questions should I be asking? And who should I be going to ask for this guidance? May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us the best of guidance. And ilman nafi'an ya Rabbil Alameen. Samahni Mawlana, I went way too long.
Jazakallah khair. Allah yanfa' feek, Shaykh. Allah yabarik feek. So if I was to go back, where do I get wisdom from? How does wisdom come about for me as an individual? Sheikh Yasser mentioned a few things about experience, about elders, and being in their presence. In the very beginning of Sheikh Yasser's talk, he spoke about the aql. And the word aql refers to iqal, which means rope. سُمِّيَ الْعَقْلُ بِذَلِكَ لِأَنَّهُ يَعْقِلُ صَاحِبَهُ. It ties me down. So in order for me to be positioned to get wisdom, this aql needs to fill its role. What's the role of this aql? It's supposed to be an advisor. An advisor to who? To my qalb, to my heart. If I was to try to pinpoint sources of wisdom, I need to go to the words of the Quran. Well, you will find every time wisdom is mentioned in the Quran for human beings, it's mentioned as something that is given by Allah. More than one location. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَقَدْ آتَيْنَا لُقْمَانَ الْحِكْمَةِ. We have given Luqman hikmah. وَمَنْ يُؤْتَ الْحِكْمَةَ فَقَدْ أُوتِيَ. Whoever is given hikmah has been given much goodness. So if I want wisdom, yes, I need to grow through experience, as Shaykh Yasir elucidated and detailed, because there's certain things about my journey and my deen that can only mature with experience. And this is even mentioned in the Quran as sabr, for example, patience. Allah Azza wa Jal says, وَكَيْفَ تَصْبِرُ عَلَى مَا لَمْ تُحِطْ بِهِ خُبْرًا. How can you possibly have the capacity to be patient with that which you've never experienced? And then Allah Azza wa Jal, He mentions another characteristic, shukr. حتى إذا بلغ أشده وبلغ 40 سنة قال ربي أوزعني أن أشكر. Until he reached his ashud, his age of maturity, and he said, and he reached the age of 40. He said, "Oh Allah, give me the capacity to express shukr and be a person of gratitude." Now, so yes, certain experiences need to be had, but not everyone who has experiences necessarily gains wisdom. There are those who live a long time and they don't break out of that sense of jahl, because there's only one source that could possibly remove jahl from the hearts. What is that? It's by Allah Azza wa Jal. I need that. Experience coupled with a relationship with Allah Azza wa Jal, this produces to us our understanding of hikmah. You know, there's a verse in the Quran that tells us when is the trust lost. You know, when will everything go down the drain, go awash, lead to ruin? When will that happen? إِنَّ عَرَضْنَا الْأَمَانَةَ عَلَى السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَالْجِبَالِ فَأَبَيْنَ أَن يَحْمِلْنَهَا وَأَشْفَقْنَ مِنْهَا. We have presented this trust to the heavens and the earth and the mountains, and they refused to carry it because of the weight of it. And then Allah says, وَحَمَلَهَا الْإِنسَانِ. This trust was carried by the human being. And then Allah says, إِنَّهُ كَانَ ظَلُومًا جَهُولًا. Wherever you find jahl, you will find dhulm. Wherever you find ignorance, indeed the human being was ever oppressive and ever ignorant. Wherever you find ignorance, you will find oppression. It follows. And wherever you find a sense of justice, adl, and knowledge coupled with it, you'll find a sense of hikmah and wisdom coming together. So where do I get this hikmah from? I need a strong and profound relationship with my soul. When my soul is alive and it's linked with the words of Allah Azza wa Jal, the words of the Prophet, that's what gives hikmah. You know, there's this beautiful quote that Sayyidina Luqman gave advice to his son. It's mentioned in Muwatta Imam Malik. He says to his son, يا بني جالس العلماء وزاحمهم فإن الله يحيي القلوب بنور الحكمة كما يحيي الأرض بوابل السماء. He says, "Oh my son, sit with people of knowledge and understanding, because Allah revives the hearts with that knowledge." And of course the top of the list, the knowledge of the Quran, the knowledge of the Sunnah, the fiqh of our beautiful illustrious tradition. All of these things, right? If Allah brings light to the heart by the nur of wisdom, just as He gives life to the earth by the rains that descend from above. So how do I get this hikmah? I need a strong sense of spirituality. I need experience in life. And I need the mentorship and presence of those who have hikmah, right? How do I learn how to have hikmah? I need to be around hukama. If I'm around Juhaz, and the Shaykh Yasir again expounded this in such beautiful detail, you know, if I'm around people who are ignorant and petty and lowly in their ambition, guess what? I'm going to be lowly in my ambition. And that ignorance is going to block me from greater realizations and understandings, right? Where do we get our hikmah from? From the one who has been given Jawami'ul Kalim. What is Jawami'ul Kalim? The capacity to describe lofty concepts in few words. That's what our Prophet ﷺ had. Where do we get our hikmah from? From the articulations of the Quran and the beautiful wordings that you find in the book of Allah Azza wa Jal. Where do we get our hikmah from? From life experience, from being around mentors who have, again, like they have gone the journey of Iman. The best way to learn how to navigate the struggles that relate to our deen and our Iman, hey, I need to find those who've gone down this path and learn from how they've grown through dealing with the hard and the difficult situations. You know, without hikmah, and Sheikh Yasir, again, he beautifully articulated this. Life is devastatingly catastrophic. It's such a scary thing that sometimes the person is the engineer of their own ruin and demise because they can't, you know, they can't think and reason with wisdom. You know, look, you know, even in our expression, you know, that's why, you know, as Sheikh Yasir said, you know, monitoring my speech, being thoughtful of the words that come out of my mouth, that requires a level of wisdom. Because this tongue here can ruin marriages, can ruin relationships, can destroy the person in their relationship with Allah Azza wa Jal. This tongue, the injury that it could possibly cause in your relationship with your parents, your spouse, siblings, or whoever, right? Hikmah, wisdom. The capacity to learn how to de-escalate when things are getting tense and when we're talking about conflicts and how they're brewing. You know, the Prophet ﷺ had profound wisdom in al-i'rad an al-jahilin. The Quran tells him this. خُذِ الْعَفْوَ وَأْمُرْ بِالْعُرْفِ وَأَعْرِضْ عَنِ الْجَاهِلِينَ. Right? Be a person who sticks to afu and is of a very forgiving and generous nature in that regard. وَأْمُرْ بِالْعُرْفِ. Enjoin people to do what's generally acceptable. And then وَأَعْرِضْ عَنِ الْجَاهِلِينَ. Right? Turn away from those who are ignorant. The Prophet ﷺ had to deal with many situations where people would transgress against maqam al-nubuwah. They would attack him, sallallahu alayhi wasallam. But yet he was a mountain of wisdom. He had the capacity of changing these individuals' hearts. So wisdom helps me change people's hearts. Wisdom helps me win over situations. Wisdom helps me deal with my vices and my desires. Because when I have wisdom, I am not blinded by what's in front of me. I'm looking at the ma'alat, the outcome. Where's this going to end up? That's the wisdom that we're seeking. And that's why it's called Nur al-Hikmah. Hikmah gives a sense of nur and vision and light and foresight that protects the person from falling in very regrettable situations. Allahu Alam.
I hope you guys picked up on a lot of Shaykh Usama said. He dropped a lot of wisdom. No, really, mashallah, may Allah bless Shaykh Usama for us. A lot of very, very important frames that he highlighted. May Allah increase him, Ya Rab. And, you know, I want to open up the floor to see if anyone has any questions, just to, you know, we've mentioned a lot of things about wisdom, but if people want some guidance on how to specifically think about this, or maybe questions they have. Tfadal, Sidi, tfadal. Any questions? Yeah, I just want to make sure I read the room on this topic, yeah.
How can you tell, like, the difference between someone having a lot of wisdom or just, like, experience? And just kind of explain the experience, or, like, wisdom, like, understanding that experience and being able to...
So that's a good question. The question is, how do you distinguish between someone who has wisdom and someone who has experience? And sometimes, you know, they are one, and sometimes they are a function of each other. So a lot of experience has bred wisdom. And sometimes, as Shaykh Usama highlighted, someone may have a long life of experience, but they've never learned. And the way in which you can see that in a person is what lessons have resolved. Does this person seem like and you can see this actually make it out. It's like you've been going through the same thing for all these years, but you've never pivoted. You've never tried something different. Like you're complaining about the same thing over 30 years later, you know. So clearly this person has a lot of experience, But that experience has not compelled them to shift gears in their life. Usually people with experience that has bred wisdom are people who can say things like, I used to when I was younger, and then I evolved and I understood and I appreciated and I saw and I came to know that. People, they usually speak in those terms. But others who just live in experience are like imprisoned. They have a very simplistic idea of life and they never let go of it. And most people today are functionally insane for this precise reason. Because what's insanity? What's insanity? Doing the same thing over and over and hoping for some different outcome. You're insane. Like literally your approach has never worked. This is your 17th marriage. Maybe you're the problem. Right? How is it that you're like recycling, like what's going on with you? Like what are you doing wrong? Right? If everyone is the problem but me, I'm the problem. Just right now, if everyone around you is toxic, you're toxic. You're the toxic one. These are like usul now. These are principles that you should take home with you. If you're saying about how everyone's toxic all the time, you are the actual toxic one. This is just rules because you and I have to appreciate we come into a normativity, a type of routine that is no growth opportunities, right? Experience has to be linked with growth. That I've grown through this experience, I have come to learn. So that's how you start to like decipher between the two. And but that's why I said you have to have a matrix, because the checks and balances has to be between a network of people. The elderly are certainly one of them. Mashayikh and people of knowledge are another one. Respected older brothers, older sisters who are kind of like they have maybe 10 to 20 years on you. Those are people you want to empower in your life. And peers that will check you. This is how you ensure that your life experiences are resulting in growth and that you're becoming a wiser person. The huge danger is when you have someone who has like years of experience, but they've never grown, and then they think that they can give advice. I'm not going to get too controversial because I don't have the bandwidth to get controversial right now. But when I have more bandwidth and I haven't spoken for like 7 hours, I'll get controversial. I promise. You know, I don't shy away from controversy, all right? But I'll come to you right now. Recently, I was giving advice. Man, I'm not going to do this right now. I don't have the mind for it. I'm not going to say what it is, but I promise you can come back to me on it. Just say, Shaykh, you promise you tell us that controversial. I'll come back to it, and it's very controversial. I was sharing advice with a group of people. And I told them, my advice is that your priorities in life should be 1, 2, 3, 4. I got so much flack for what I said. But my aunt told me, and my father, and my mother, and whatever, and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, well, with all due respect to those experiences, they are not imbued with wisdom. They're coming from a place of weakness, a place of hurt. Sometimes if someone got hurt in their life, someone went through a difficult circumstance in life, like for example, some people get really sour on marriage. Why? Because they went through a sour marriage, so the whole enterprise of marriage is, and now don't make the mistakes I made. I went into marriage this way, you go into marriage armed, ready to go. Don't do what I did. That's not wisdom. That's not wisdom. You can factor that experience in, but you have to check it. You have to check it against the array, the matrix of mentorship. Like, okay, maybe this person, they're coming from a particular bias. Maybe their experience is as such. And so sometimes people get imprisoned in their experiences thinking that the collective now should be, don't do what I did, right? And it's a very blunt kind of like superficial experience that results in harm and pain. And like, you know, there is wisdom that's older than yours. And there's experience that is richer and more expansive than yours. It's called what they usually call the wisdom of old. Like people who you know, there's a difference between people who reference the wisdom of old, like Shaykh Osama mentioned Luqman al-Hakim. Luqman al-Hakim, he is the possessor of the wisdom of old. If you go into the Quran, وَإِذْ قَالَ لُقْمَانُ لِابْنِهِ, and you read his wisdoms, what he conveyed to his son, that's wisdom of old. We have a lot of these. The mother who's giving nasiha to her daughter on her wedding night, that's wisdom of old. You share that nasiha today, you'll be cancelled in 37 seconds. Wallahi al-azim. Some of these nasa'ih, the wisdom of old, you can't say it publicly. You can't even say it privately. What are you telling me? What are you saying? Right? But because the person who's right above me had a previous experience that was really nasty and they're telling me something very different. No, you've now become disempowered. By the way, all I'm advocating with this wisdom stuff is empower yourself with as much rich knowledge, experience, and know-how as possible. Be weary of being colored, right? Colored by a very myopic vision of things. Because this person was hurt in a certain way or went through a tragic circumstance in that way, that doesn't mean they possess all the knowledge of this thing. You understand what I'm saying? Yes, brother, sorry, you were going to say. Sheikh Osama, do you want to say? Sheikh Osama, say something.
I'll share a few thoughts. So look, obviously, we said hikmah and wisdom is different than knowledge and information. Hikmah is actually supposed to humble you. It's not like having, a lot of information and that's it. No. That actually, it's quite the opposite. This information ends up to cause you to realize how much you don't know. That's what hikmah is. Like there's another expression of it. One of the scholars, he said, al-ilmu thalathatu ashbar. Knowledge is 3 milestones. And contrary to what you might think, because again, this depends on the way you define knowledge. If you're talking about having more of information, well, there's tons of people who have a lot of information, they're absolutely ignorant, because they don't have that hikmah. So he says, the first of these milestones, whoever reaches it becomes arrogant. The second of these milestones, the individual becomes humbled because now I start realizing, okay, there's more to this. I can't be hasty in talking about, there's different viewpoints. I need to consider this and the other and so on. And then he says, whoever reaches the third of these milestones realizes he simply doesn't know. One of the ugliest manifestations of ignorance is being spiritually blind. There's like just like there's an intelligence quotient. For someone who has a high IQ, there's a spiritual quotient as well for spiritual IQ. And what causes the person to be very ignorant spiritually is having these types of diseases, showing off and being shallow and superficial, being envious of others and wanting them to lose their blessings, being arrogant in thinking that you are somehow superior and dominant, yet you're a needy, humble, simple creation of God in this expansive universe. So what hikmah truly is these other realizations that break the nafs. So there's no way that a person could get true hikmah, this is what I'm trying to say, and become arrogant by it. Because that means they did not have hikmah at all. The hikmah is supposed to cause a downward trend for the ego, not an upward trend. And the more my ego goes up, the less hikmah I actually have. So that's how we would frame it in the Islamic tradition.
Did that help answer your question? Jazakallah khair, barakallah feekum. Any other questions? Yes, brother. Hold on, let's get sisters. Any sisters in the back with questions? If a sister does have a question, just make sure we have that brother in the corner over there and the brother in the red, and we'll come to you, inshallah. I spoke a lot. No, I spoke more. How do you make sure your intention is not contaminated with riyah?
Look, one of our righteous predecessors said, I struggled with my intention for 20 years until I was able to commandeer it. The qalb, or the heart, has been named qalb in Arabic language, لِتَقَلُّبِهِ. It's going to be frequently changing. There's no such thing as, all right, you know what, I got my intention all figured out. It's going to be a jihad. It's going to be a struggle always. Now, there are certain things that make it easier to experience sincerity. Among them is doing private actions. As Allah Azza wa Jal says in تُبْدُ الصَّدَقَاتِ فَنِعِمَّا هِي. If you were to make your charities public, blessed are they. And if you were to conceal them and give it to those in need, it's better for you, it's better for your heart. So I need private actions. My heart needs it. And that's why one of the ones who will be in the shade of Allah Azza wa Jal is someone who gave with his right what his left hand does not know. And another one is one who remembered Allah in solitude and began to cry. My heart needs private actions. That's one of the most effective ways to get sincerity. And and then there's this sort of, in our deen we have our own sense of cognitive behavioral therapy, spiritually speaking. When it comes to dealing with my intention and building a strong sense of sincerity, I need to talk to my nafs, right? And Surah Zumar, among the surah, I call it Surah Al-Ikhlas number 2, it details to us a lot of the principles that lead to sincerity. And in that surah, Allah Azza wa Jal, teaches us and clarifies to us, well, I need to talk to my nafs. إِنَّ الَّذِينَ تَدْعُونَ مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ عِبَادٌ أَمْثَالُكُمْ. Anyone who you would attempt to call upon other than Allah are just as needy as you. So this sense of talking to my nafs is going to also contribute to sincerity, because when I realize others' needs and their dependence on the All-Powerful, then I'd be less incentivized to seek them through my actions. Those are some things.
MashaAllah. Barakallahu feekum. Yes, brother in the red.
How would you go about finding a mentor, proper mentors? And then the second part of the question is there a point where you outgrow a mentor? Like, for example, if someone is 17 years old, and older brother is 30, then they get to an older age where they're 20 and 30. It's is there a point where you outgrow them?
The question is actually, mashallah, a very good question. The question was, how do I go about finding mentors, and when do I know I've outgrown a mentor? Going about finding mentors is a function of you really having a type of prowess, like an awareness of looking for people that you feel that, mashallah, they have a good head on their shoulders. For example, if you're trying to make money and you see someone who's wealthy, you're going to be like, can you mentor me? Because I want to be wealthy. My advice is look for people who are stable. They look stable. They have stable marriages. They have healthy marriages. They're happy, right? I know people in my life, mashallah, who are just genuinely happy people. They're settled. One of them is Amu Fikri, may Allah bless him. My father, wallahi, I'm not just saying this to... That man's just always happy, mashallah. He's just always content. Wallahi al-azim, may Allah bless him. I'm not it's not some bragging. Sheikh Osama knows, he's Sheikh Osama, my father is as much as Sheikh Osama's father, then he's my father. And the guy just knows the art of contentment, just to be content. Okay, you know what? Go ask him, why are you so content? Because most people, they want money to be content and happy. They want relationships to be content and happy. So you have to find people who are content. There's other people, they're just perpetually miserable. Maybe that's not a good mentor. Just always miserable. Everything is always a problem. Okay, maybe that's not a great mentor. Right? So there's just natural wisdom, by the way, that Allah makes us, because Allah makes it, جُبِلَ الْإِنسَانُ عَلَى حُبِّ مَا أَحْسَنَ. We like ihsan, we like beautiful things. So we see beauty in people, beauty in conduct. People have beautiful character. So those, and mashallah, we have so many in our communities of people that I can take wisdom from. The second question about when do you become wiser, or when do you outgrow your mentor? I guess I'm of two hearts around that question. On one end, I want to say that's not how anyone should ever think. Meaning that you should always be a mentee. You should always be someone who is ready to be mentored. Now, it could become that, the student becomes the teacher. That's like a whole theme in martial arts and all other spaces like military warfare, everything. That's the student has become the teacher. But you never become deluded in that. The student becoming the teacher does not mean the student does not need the teacher. Imam Ibn al-Qasim. Ibn al-Qasim was one of the great Maliki scholars. He was one of the top students of Imam Malik. He says, جلست الإمام مالك 20 سنة. I sat with him 20 years. أخذت العلم منه في عامين وأخذت الباقي أخذت الأدب في الباقي. I took from him knowledge in 2 years, and then I took from him adab for 18 years. Just adab, how to be. And rahmatullahi alayhi, my Shaykh Rayyan, rahmatullahi alayhi, I certainly did not take a fraction of his knowledge, but that whole notion of just sitting with someone who can teach you adab, rahmatullahi alayhi, that's a big part of my relationship with him, is just feeling that every moment with him I'm gaining. And so if you have a really good mentor, you're always benefiting from them. You actually come to a point where your benefit from them is just being in their company, even if they don't say anything. There's a benefit just being in the company of people of wisdom, people of ilm, people of knowledge, people of salah, people of taqwa. Wallahi al-azim, I'll tell you something, this is not hyperbole. There's people in my life where I've had serious issues or concerns or worries. I just needed to be in their company and the problem was solved. They didn't even to say a thing. I think, Sami, you can attest to this, and others can attest to this. There's just people like that. And we share some of those people. It's just alhamdulillah, it's done. I figured it out. So you'll always need mentorship. It's not a matter of because I'll tell you, and the reason I have two hearts around this question is, yeah, it may be there's a point where maybe the idea you should be following is different from the one that your mentor is telling you. So that can happen. Because your mentorship matrix has resulted in, you've put in all the outputs and maybe the direction should be a little different. But doesn't mean that you've outgrown your mentor. Another part of mentorship that you have to be very careful of is you can't make it a thing of insecurity. A lot of young people don't like to feel like they are lesser than. So it's I've reached a point where I don't need that anymore. I can give advice. Anytime you find yourself thinking that you don't need advice, you have definitely entered into a space of pure ignorance. 100%. So don't make having mentorship as a function of insecurity. No, I'm just perpetually someone who needs guidance. Sayyidina Imam Shafi'i, who would say, كُلَّمَا ازْدَدْتُ عِلْمًا ازْدَدْتُ عِلْمًا بِجَهْلِي. Every time, all the time that I've increased in knowledge, the principal thing I increased in the knowledge of is the knowledge of my ignorance. So you find power in knowing that I really have very little knowledge. So it's not, mentor. By the way, most the really wise people, their wisdom is unassuming. It's not arrogant. It's not like a chip they carry on their shoulder. It's just they're wise. And there's plenty young people who are very wise. SubhanAllah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as Shaykh Usama said, He bestowed wisdom upon them. What did Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Abbas say? He says, no, Sayyidina Abdullah Abbas says, about Sayyidina Muhammad, he says, وُلِدْتُ قَبْلَهُ وَهُوَ أَكْبَرُ مِنِّي. I was born before him, but he is older than me. He is bigger than me. SubhanAllah. فَنَسْأَلُ اللَّهَ الْحِكْمَةَ يَا رَبِّ. Yes, brother. We have to close? Yeah, you're going to go? Tfadal, Sayyidi, inshallah. We'll wrap up, inshallah. Any sisters, quickly before we come to this brother? Sorry. Sisters. Going once, twice. Yes, sister right there in the corner. Jazakallah khair, that's a very good question. Everyone hear that? I don't think I have to repeat it, right? Um, one of the factors of mentorship that you have to be very mindful of is this person that I'm taking wisdom, quote unquote, or guidance from, what's their end goal? What is their objective? If the person that you have taken as a mentor, their objective is the dunya, then know that there are obvious limitations to this mentor. This mentor is only governed by the dunya. There's some mentors you have, they're only governed by self-preservation. This is how you're going to preserve yourself in the dunya. This is how you will protect yourself in the dunya. It's a very dunyawi-centric guidance. Those mentors you have to be very careful with because they are limited in their scope, in their journey, in what they're actually working towards. And most of the mentors that we default to are the dunyawi-centric mentors because I want to succeed in the dunya, so who are the people that will help me do that? You have a young person, who are you taking advice from? Well, I want to go into finance, so I've befriended Amu and sister and so on who are in finance because they're going to help me. They're my mentors to get into finance or any other, conduit. Well, you've limited yourself unnecessarily in a very painful way, and now you're at the risk of thinking that my whole life is about what this mentorship. Well, I was told that the only way to get ahead is do this. There's so many people that I know firsthand who've sacrificed their lives and some of the really important part of their lives, their personal life, their family life, their spiritual life, their religious life, because these quote-unquote mentors said the only way you're going to get ahead is if you do this. You got to move away, you got to do this, you got to get into these programs, go, 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 go. So you went dunya, like full speed ahead. And then what happens? So those mentors, you have to really put a massive asterisk on their mentorship. But I would also say that having a mentor, it's not like you have mentors of the dunya and mentors of the akhirah. There's also mentors of both, right? It's like you actually have to start to realize, okay, I need to be empowered with the knowledge of people who help me understand what my role in the dunya should actually be. How can I maximize my time in the dunya? That is a function of husna in the dunya and husna in the akhirah. Because we ask for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us what? Atina fi dunya hasana wa fil akhirati hasana. We want the goodness of this life and the goodness of the afterlife. And there is goodness to this life. But it's not going to even be a function of those who are possessed by the dunya. Like if your mentors are only possessed by their hurt or their pain or their anger or their trauma or their sense of self and protection and success and power. A lot of people today think, so I don't fall into the mistakes, I have to have money and power. This way I'm going to assure my welfare. That's false. That does not result in absolute welfare. Trust me, I know plenty of people who are power and wealthy, and they're the most miserable people I know. So it's not an identifiable source of welfare. You want to empower yourself with mentors who really set the frame of their lives as the akhirah, like I was teaching in the previous class, na ayyuhal walad. Those who are thinking, okay, I have the vastness of the afterlife to factor for. And I cannot sacrifice my afterlife for some superficial dunyawi gain. So I have to be really strategic here. So empower mentors who are actually governed by the afterlife. And these are not necessarily quote-unquote darawish, people who are just sitting on the mountainside or sitting in caves, detached from the dunya. No, these are people who are living in the dunya that you're living in, or we're living in, but they just have a really, they have a very ukhrawi orientation. Right? And then so know also what you're going for people for. It's like, for example, I'm going to a doctor to help me resolve this pain I have in my leg. So there's wisdom there. Consider that person a mentor who's going to help me understand my leg. But now if I go and I make it that, okay, well, I have this mentor. He's amazing, she's amazing. Everything about my leg they know. But then if you go into their personal life, it's a disaster. They have no wisdom anywhere else except in making sure my leg feels better. That's where a lot of people are imprisoned in that superficial type of mentorship. I hope that helps, inshallah. Yes, brother. سامحني والله. يتيم الأب والأم يتيم. لا، اللي في الفقه الإسلامي اللي أبوه ميت يتيم. أها. هذا سؤال ليه دعوة بالحكمة ولا ده السؤال؟ ماليش في الحكمة يا شيخ، بدي أعرف التعدد. نعم. تقسطوا في اليتامى. طيب. هو سؤال كبير الحقيقة، يعني it's gonna be I just have to يعني distinguish هو الغرض من السؤال ايش؟ ايه الغرض؟ ايه يعني what's the objective؟ انت عاوز تفهم ايش بالضبط؟ كل سؤال عاوز تفهم الآية. اها. اوكي. هو لا. Yes, okay. طيب يعني شوف، هو يعني المسألة ليها تفاصيل. There's like some details to this. But the principal spirit of this ayah, تفهمها, I'll just say in English عشان كل حد يفهم, is that there is a notion of children who need to be cared for. And the nature of how the society was is that with the nature of warfare at that time, there's a lot of orphans. And someone who either because of warfare or because of death in the family, these children need to be cared for. One of the wisdoms and the benefits of this multiplication of marriages is the welfare of the children, is to protect the integrity of the children. But the specific of mathna wa thulatha wa ruba' is simultaneous, not like one after the other. So the parent, the woman dies and after. No, it's simultaneously. That's how you reconcile the notion of يعني, the benefit or the welfare of the children, the welfare. There is something there, and there's a whole discourse في الفقه الإسلامي about حق الطفل. Like today in a lot of modern marriages, this is outside of the topic. This is the last outside of hikmah topic I'm going to accept, right? Just so we're clear. But just for the benefit, inshallah, is that a lot of times when we think of marriage today, we think of one-to-one. So a lot of people think, okay, children are a function of my rights versus your rights. So you see a lot of battles in the courts around what? Child custody, correct? No, he's my child. No, he's my child. I have more rights, so you have no rights. This is a very flawed conception of the welfare of the child. Actually, my wife, her PhD thesis is on child custody law for Sharia al-Islamiyya, specifically in the Maliki school, because she highlights how the principal discussion around the welfare of people in terms of marriage and children is around children, not husband-wife. Like today, it's all about husband's rights, wife's rights. In Islam, it's about the rights of the children and the welfare of the children. So a lot of marriage was conceived of based on that reality. How to ensure and preserve the welfare of children. That's just a high level touch of it, but inshallah we'll get into tafasil with you one-to-one bi'idhnillah. But I just want to highlight that there is something to think about, that when you think about children in Islam in general, their rights and their their rights and what they need and what they're owed is given preference over what you like and what you want. I may want proximity to my child, but what's better is for them to be with that parent, not me. And the Sharia has a wisdom here that we have to highlight. Right? So a lot of the idea around children today has become a function of my nafs and my desires. I can't imagine not having this child with me. Well, what does the Sharia say is in the best interest of this child? That's what should lead. Right? And so that informs a lot of other things as well. Wallahu a'lam. طيب. I think with that we have to close, inshallah. It's 1:56 and Salah is at 2 o'clock. So today we'll, because we're going to have the tahajjud in 4 minutes, correct? Where's Usama? Usama, you here? Afterwards, khalas, one-to-one, inshallah. But we want to close with, Usama, are you guys going to start at 2, right? Khalas, so we're going to, until 2 o'clock, 3 minutes, sit down. The dua of this night, these nights of, the last 2 nights of Ramadan, is the dua that Sayyidah Aisha, when she asked Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, if I were to witness Laylatul Qadr, what should I say? What did he say? Allahumma innaka afoon تحب العفو فاعف عنا. So inshallah, everyone close your eyes. We spoke about a lot of things. We can put that all aside. Now we have to get into the substance of this night, which is this ask of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that, Ya Rabbi, you are al-afu, you are the one who loves to pardon and forgive, and you love to pardon, so forgive us and pardon us, Ya Rabbil Alameen. So inshallah, everyone close your eyes, bow your head with humility. We all have stuff, mistakes, sins, forgetfulness, neglectfulness, so much that we have to account for. And we're begging that Allah in this night, if this is night Laylatul Qadr, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us complete afu, complete pardoning. Allahumma ya Rabbi. اللهم إنك عفو كريم تحب العفو فاعف عنا. اللهم إنك عفو 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 كريم 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 تحب العفو فاعف عنا. Ya Allah, Ya Kareem, Ya Rahman, Ya Rahim, in this night of Ramadan, in these last 10 nights, Ya Rabbi, in this odd night of the last 10 nights of Ramadan, Allahumma ballighna Laylatul Qadr. Ya Rabbi, deliver us beautifully to Laylatul Qadr. Grant us the forgiveness of Laylatul Qadr, the pardoning of Laylatul Qadr, the bounty of Laylatul Qadr, the ibadah and the multiplication of reward of Laylatul Qadr. Ya Rabbi, make us of those who are your humble, truly beloved servants to you, who you are pleased with in this dunya. Ya Rabbi, we ask you to grant us the blessings of these nights of Ramadan, the rewards, to grant us, Ya Rabbi, the generosity of these nights. We know your generosity is endless, and you love to bestow upon your servants, so bestow upon us in these nights, Ya Rabbi. And grant us all of what we need and what we want, Ya Rabbi, by your grace and your mercy and your generosity. Grant us the best of this life and the best of the afterlife. Ya Rabbi, allow us to have long lives fi khidmatika, in your service. And grant us afiyah and wellness and barakah in these lives. Grant us goodness and beauty in our families, in our spouses, in our marriages, in our children, in our homes, and all of what we are and all of what we do, Ya Rabbi. Grant us tawfiq, grant us successful tawfiq from you and aid and support to serve you as you deserve to be served and as you love to be served. We are your humble servants, Ya Rabbi, and we are here to serve you. Ya Rabbi, we have been often self-indulgent and self-absorbed and self-centered. We have been misled by our hawa, our desires and our nufus. Ya Rabbi, liberate us from ourselves and allow us to have nufus that are radiya mardiyah, and have souls that shine brightly and qulub that are pure, and that we have minds that are imbued with hikmah and ilm, wisdom and knowledge and understanding. Ya Allah, Ya Kareem, Ya Rahman, Ya Rahim, grant us and bestow upon us the best of companionship, the best of those who will be alongside us in your way, in your path, Ya Allah, Ya Kareem, Ya Rahman, Ya Rahim. We ask, Ya Rabbi, that you take none of our souls until you are fully pleased with us. Ya Allah, take none of our souls until you are fully pleased with us. Allow us to exit Ramadan in the best of states, in the most purified of states, in the most beautiful of states. Ya Rabbi, we want to exit this month and you have cleansed our slates, that you as if we were birthed from our mother's wombs. Ya Rabbi, Ya Kareem, grant us tawfiq to live lives that are pleasing to you. Make salah beautiful in our hearts and beloved to us. Make siyam and dua and zakah and recitation of the Quran and learning and studying your deen. Make these realities beloved to our hearts. Make dhikr beloved to us. And make everything that's displeasing to you hated to our hearts. Make sin hated to our hearts. Make indulgence hated to our hearts. Make all of those things that keep us away from you and take us away from you and corrupt our hearts and souls, keep those things away from us, Ya Rabbil Alameen. Grant us a relationship with your masjid. Make it that our hearts are attached to your masjid. Make it that, Ya Rabbi, we have righteous deeds that will give us comfort and companionship in our graves. Make our graves, Ya Rabbi, pieces of Jannah. Grant us, Ya Rabbi, the reality of your shade when there's no other shade. Grant us the sip from the basin of Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam on the Day of Judgment. Make it that, Ya Rabbi, we will be granted and gifted Jannah without any hisab. Grant us, Ya Rabbi, al-shafa'a al-uzma, the intercession of Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Make it, Ya Allah, Ya Kareem, that we will enter Jannah without any hisab. Grant us, Ya Rabbi, the highest levels of Jannah in the company of the awliya and the siddiqeen and the shuhada and the salihin and the anbiya and the rusul. Grant us their company, the company of Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and grant us the greatest gift, لذة النظر إلى وجهك الكريم, to see you in Jannah, Ya Rabbil Alameen. Bless this gathering, Ya Rabbi. Bless this community of believers. Bless this masjid. Bless our ummah. Bless and protect our brothers and sisters in Gaza and Palestine, our brothers and sisters in Sudan, our brothers and sisters in Iran, and all across the world. Bless and protect the lands, Ya Rabbil Alameen, and bring peace and prosperity and security. Ya Rabbi, please extinguish the fires of fitna and the fires of war. Put them out, Ya Rabbil Alameen. We don't want to see warfare. We want to see peace and happiness and prosperity in the human condition. Ya Rabbi, in these blessed nights, please bring beauty into this world. Ya Rabbi, purify ourselves and make us your truly beautiful servants on this earth. وصلى اللهم وسلم على سيدنا محمد وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. Inshallah, we're going to get up for salah. Oh, Shaykhna, samihni wallah. We're here for salah now, inshallah, so please, everyone, quietly line up, no talking. Quietly line up, inshallah, for salah. Barakallahu feekum. Jazakum Allah khairan.